Hi, and welcome to the Firmware Emotive Podcast. You are listening to John Kai Herbert, and on this episode, I'll be talking about Fight Club. There's a good chance I'll break this into two episodes just because of the content that I found. I watched it the other night. It's currently on Prime, and I love that movie. I've watched it so many. I've got it on I had it on VHS. I had it on DVD. Had it on Blu-ray. Had it on electronic copy, and it just I felt cool to do an analysis on it. I felt cool to see how it applies to today's themes and archetypally, like what's going on, and it just felt right. And so here I am doing exactly that. I'll just leave up some on my YouTube channel. I'll just throw up some pictures of like characters in the movie. I just did a Fight Club search and see like what images are in there. And so if you're listening to it on a podcast, then you're not going to see that, of course. And so without further ado, I'm going to get stuck right into it. Now, the way the movie opens. Oh, we'll also be referencing notes as I go. The way the movie opens is a scene of like 3D neurons, like a whole bunch of neurons firing in the brain, and I feel like where we're at currently is a lot of us are still trying to make sense of the world with our brain, and there's so much of an information overload as to what's going on, who we are. With the rise of social media, like this movie was around like before Facebook and Instagram and TikTok and Snapchat and all the other apps that grace our phones today. So it was a slower time, I feel. And there was a space for the mind, a space for like mindset, looking at things from a mindset approach. And I feel like today, like it's just there's too much information. And it starts with like a flash forward or present time, where the narrator, played by Edward Norton, is, and I'll reference him as as the narrator in this podcast. He has a gun in his mouth, and he's having a bit of a flash forward, flashback, present time type situation. Now, when he flashes back, one of the initial events he's taken to is meeting Bob. And this journey through all of these men's groups or survival groups like cancer groups and like testicular cancer and tuberculosis and he meets Bob, and a classic line like Bob's got bitch tits. Bob's been on hormone replacement therapy. He was a juicer, so he took a lot of steroids, and now he has his body compensated for that, and now he has like man boobs, like huge breasts. And for me, the way I read that was like how we've overly feminized men. Like we've taken men to a point where it's very hard for them to stand up for what they believe in. In fact, there's so many options of what to believe in. It can become a choice of chasing things just to get sex, or chasing things to appear virtuous in the 3D world. Men is what we are is one of the phrases that they speak. Like, men is what we are. And in these like sharing circles, it really feels like you get stuck in this narrative of like your shit. Like you get stuck in this circular talking about your issues, and it can become kind of cultish. So for me, in the circles that I run, like there's a direction. Like let's step outside. Let's acknowledge that the narrative existed, and let's go a bit deeper to find out why it's a pattern in your life. What unexpressed emotion, what unexpressed or unintegrated part of you needs to be brought to the surface, felt, and then integrated. Like how is this playing a part in your individuation process to finding out who you really are? There's also a line in there called the sleeping awake, and like him in his job, like traveling a lot and going to place, there's this notion that you are in the world and not of the world. And for me, like in zombie tales and in the zombie archetype, like there's this sense of like you're doing something and you're not doing something, and then you also don't have the awareness or the courage or whatever it is to make that decision to cut it off. So you're in like this half life, half death type situation where like you half love your job and then you half love what you spend your money on to escape from your job. So it's like this sleeping awake that the narrator is in, like going to work, traveling around, being unconsciously being someone, like inhabiting a body and not really knowing how to use it. Which results in a lot of passive aggression towards his boss. Like he can't take him head on into whatever the shit that's coming up for him. So he's this passive aggressive, neutered man, like a eunuch, in dealing with what's going on for him. And then there's this overlay of consumerism to try and escape from the mundane, and this projection of like this shadow of who he wants to be. Like he'll buy like the yin yang table, like with the yin yang being like, and I feel like there's some symbolism of spiritual bypass there around like, nah, he's spiritual because he's bought a yin yang table and look how spiritual it is, and I feel like that plays out. And also with doubling into like virtue signaling around buying something that's like handmade from like children in some third world country, and by buying this, you know, you're helping to support them in whatever survival that they need to do. And it's like this and the parallels I see with the Bible is like buying sacrifices before you go into temple. And I see that now with like you do. There's an element of us that wants to feel spiritual and feel like we're committing to a spiritual walk, and trying to avoid the guilt of not doing that, because there's a part of us that feels like it's really important to explore this spiritual walk. And so we'll cheat it in some way. Like we might buy some Buddha beads, or we might from the Bodhi tree, or we'll do something that gives us the appearance that we're really spiritual. However, deep down, we're smothering ourselves in our shadow. Like we don't have any freedom or any ability to be authentic. And then he goes to the GP. He's struggling to sleep, like with all this mental chatter and this dissonance in his character. He goes to the GP and asks for help, and the GP like just says, he just needs to get some sleep. And I feel like this is a spotlight on our medical system, and how like you go to a GP in Australia in particular, you go to a GP to get like a mental health care plan, and the instruments, and by instruments I mean like a document that they use to diagnose, instrument to either whether it's they try and identify like how depressed you are or how neurotic you are. I think it's the form is like D21 or something, or DP21, and it's a quick multi-choice test that you need to do, and it works out whether you're depressed or not. So back to the movie, like the GP, like the system's just not helping him. Like the GP doesn't say like, you need to look at your life, like just get some sleep, just choose some valerian root, and like it's like this. It's not the GP's problem, because there's a good chance that the GP is also not being authentic. So he's stuck in the same kind of sleeping awake. He's just running scripts. He's running like a program that he's been trained to run in medical school, which doesn't allow you to be present with the person, doesn't allow you to be present with yourself in order to work out like what the fuck is going on. Like it's sick. There's something that is fundamentally sick and unwell in society as a whole. And it starts with looking at us. There's the odd flashes of Tyler, so this alter ego of the narrator, like rehearsing conversations and Like who does he really want to be? Like he suppressed his shadow so much, it's starting to manifest into like this kind of like schizophrenic, neurotic, schism in his personality. And yeah, I feel like that's really important to say. Like you suppressed it so much, and like, today, like we suppress who we are so much that we end up creating like metaphysical illnesses, like psychosomatic illnesses, and I feel like this is a sign of that as well. And this is an old movie. This is like 91. I can check that. Then we've got like we're jumping back to Bob and like him being a juicer, like trying to be a fake masculine, like a fake alpha, like this image of like a fakeness of what a man is supposed to be, and in doing so, like he ends up corrupting his body and becoming something that he feared. And I feel like when you do that, like when you do something out of fear, when you do something of wanting to be something because you're afraid of who you are, you end up creating like what you're running from. Also jump around to sharing circles. Like I mentioned sharing circles before, and like for me, like I really feel like to get the juice out of a sharing circle, you really need to have like a therapist there, like doing some like psychodynamic work and inner work. Otherwise, it's just maintenance. Like it's just like just keeping you alive. You're not really diving into like what is going on for you. Like okay, yes, you have some kind of terminal illness. Like how are you going to face death? Or what other esoteric modalities do you want to dive into in order to see if there's hope? Like what people do you need to repair relationships with so you can leave this earth knowing that you did your best, knowing that you've touched the lives of the people that you can touch now. Now this is where this is where he meets Marla, and I fucking love Marla. Like Marla is this delicious feminine chaos, which just spices up the entire movie. Like Marla's like a huge favorite for me in this movie. She's this the chaos that breaks the narrator's world. Like the narrator is living yet another lie in going to all of these groups, and Marla just like so blatantly brings like this chaos to the scene, and she owns herself. Like she comes to the testicular cancer group, and I think the narrator asks Ed Norton asks like, why are you even here? It's cheaper than a movie, and there's free coffee, and that's Marla. Like she doesn't give a fuck. Like she's just there to do whatever she wants to do, and she's completely transparent about it. And she catches the narrator rehearsing this conversation around talking about like, exposing her, and he doesn't acknowledge that. So there's like this part of him that's like so delusional about his reality that this schism is really starting to form around like trying to avoid the fear of an authentic conversation. He's trying to rehearse it, and in rehearsing it, Marla's picked up on it like straight away and just shone that mirror, like just put that mirror on him straight away. And I feel like that's what women are very naturally good at, is just like sniffing out bullshit. I know in my relationships that's exactly what they were able to do, and I'm a better man for it. So Marla triggers all this unrealistic bullshit in his life. Like her lie is reflected in my lie. And then there's a really nice scene about Marla being his power animal, and he like freaks out about it. And I feel like in relationships, like if you allow your woman or partner to be in a place of like being humble in yourself and allowing that curiosity around like what can they bring, what if I was allowed to simulate what they're saying and try it out as an experiment. Like, would I be a happier person in doing that? And this is not doing it so it makes your partner happy. This is doing it and trying it out for yourself and seeing it if it makes you happy. It might be trying a new food. It could be doing anything that your partner recommends. And just having that humility, because your partner is going to see aspects of you that you are not going to be able to see. I feel like having an objective person in your life is priceless if you're going to do inner work. I think Marla is very much that, and both of them expose the inauthenticity. That there's this dance that goes on throughout the whole movie. Like Marla just walking out in traffic. There's a scene where Marla, like after one of these sessions, like Marla just walks straight out into the traffic, and she doesn't give a fuck. Like, she could die in any one of those moments, and I feel like there's a faith involved in that, where she walks out in the traffic in faith. Whether it's blind faith or stupid faith, it seems like, for me, archetypally, there's a faith that's involved in that, and she's okay. Like, walking out into the world, knowing that you could die, and you're going to be protected. Like, she can't leave yet. She still has a soul's purpose, so there's an element there of fulfilling that, and I'll double back to that too. The concepts around having a death wish. Like, and Freud covers this, like, if you're going to have, or if you have a wish to live, you're also going to have a wish to die. And that's a component, I feel, that plays out with Marla in particular. Like, there's a darkness around her that isn't inherently good, it isn't inherently bad. It's just that there's a death wish in her, and it's very powerful. It's like the Pluto of the movie, if you will. Then, he meets Tyler on the plane, and they exchange these lame pleasantries of, he's the narrator's probably rehearsed again and again, and he feels like he's really clever, and it's not authentic. It's not an authentic bond. Like, so there's this house of cards in the narrator's world of, like, no, I've got all these little witty one-liners that I can use to put someone on my side, to make someone like me. And, like, I feel like when Tyler comes into the picture, like, everybody likes him because he's him. Like, he's the most authentic version of himself. He says whatever the fuck he wants. He fucks however the fuck he wants. Like, he has a purpose and he has a drive, and that attracts people. And I feel like that's where we need leadership today, is by people just being themselves. And it's very challenging. It's very hard for you to get to that space, and it's hugely rewarding. I just bumped my microphone, so if you heard a knock, that was me with my giant canoe feet. So he also speaks about, like, things you own end up owning you. So when you buy something in order to appear a certain way, you'll want to carry that wherever you want to go. You might want to go outside, and this includes crystals and things too. Like, I feel like in the New Age movement, like, when you start buying, and I've got shit in my room. I'm just having a quick scan around my room right now, and I've got, like, junk that I bought that I need to get rid of, like books and things that I know I'm never gonna read, and, like, part of me feels attached to them, that I might need them one day, or there's some secret that's left unlocked in there that I could find that will help me over whatever the issue I'm struggling with, and that there's some kind of aura by me having the book that it can bestow upon me. There's some kind of, like, wisdom that by just having the book in a bookshelf, there's some kind of aura it gives me, and it's a show-off thing. Like, for me, like, there's a part of me that wants to show off, like, my superior intellect by having a fucking book in the shelf. So for me, like, secondary values wise, for reasons for me hanging on to stuff, because it's not exactly the most healthiest thing, and I do purge what needs to be purged. However, I do feel like I'm overdue for one, because there's books in there that I will not read again, and they're purely there for aesthetics. And for me personally, me in my own world, I don't want to have that, for the most part. I'll probably review that. there's a line that he says when they go meet in the pub when his house blows up. Cut the foreplay. Like, just ask. And I feel like a man that, and women, men and women that struggle with being authentic, tiptoe around what they really want. And I'll just double back to his apartment blowing up. Like, he's got all this junk in his apartment that he bought to be something that he's not. And then when it blows up, like, his fridge is outside and all that's inside it is like condiments. And like, just the exposure and the shame around, like, that's a huge shame spiral there around, like, I've got all this stuff and yet I'm nobody. Like, I've bought all this IKEA furniture and this other stuff to fill up my house, and it's been destroyed, and all my identity was tied up in that. And then who am I? Like, this theme of death, like this ego death of, like, well, everyone can see what was in my apartment. Like, it's like this thrust into humility and humbleness, which I feel like is one of the main points in inner growth. So yeah, like he's saying, like just ask, man, and cut the foreplay. So it's like with women and men, like especially in sex, like being able to know what you want, being able to articulate, even if you don't know, like even communicating what's going on in your body. Like stop overpowering it. Like, stop trying to be something that you're fucking not. Like, man, I feel scared. Like, it's been a while since I've had sex. There's a good chance that, I'm going to come really quickly, and there's a good, I might feel some shame around it. And being able to own it in a masculine way and not a whiny boy way is part of the hero's journey for a man to become a man. So you're not expecting the woman to gush over you and like to try and save you. It's just like, look, this is the reality, like, it's been a while since I've had sex. Sex has always been an issue for me, and I just want to explore that. I just want to take it as it comes. No pun intended. Then when they start fighting outside the club, so Tyler agrees for him to stay at his house, and they have a fight outside the club, and he goes, I want you to hit me as hard as you can. And me personally, like, I haven't been in many fights. High school, I remember a few, and most of my fights have been like intellectual. And my housemates here, I'm keen to do some jiu-jitsu. Like, jiu-jitsu feels like a sport that's for me. Like, I feel terrified at the notion about getting into it, and it feels like it's exactly what I need. Like, there's a lot of humility in that, in humbleness in that sport. I feel like it's perfect. But anyway, I want you to hit me as hard as you can. And so he goes to hit Tyler and punches him in the ear, and then Tyler punches him back, and like there's this feeling of like, oh, it's like coming back into the body. And for me, that was like a pseudo body work. Like, it's almost like this intense massage that puts you right back in your body. Like, it brings you to presence. It's like, whoa, I have a body, I have all these feelings, and I felt like it was really special and unique particularly in the work that we do around like getting into your body, like being able to massage your body, like being able to do things so like you can feel the knots and all the nooks and crannies of where you hold tension and stress in your body. Then he jumps over to who Tyler is, and Tyler's like splicing porn in movies, and the way the narrator talks about Tyler here, like he starts to put him on a pedestal, and like his whole tone changes. It's like he starts to become much more identified with Tyler around like, nah, this guy's special, and he's making like, I'm special because he's special and he hangs out with me. So it's almost like this. We see it in politics. I see it in the schoolyard where you have like the bully, or someone who is, you could quote, like, call an alpha male, and all the betas and men that are passive aggressive will stand behind him. You might see it in gorillas as well, with primates, where they kind of put someone that's more powerful on a pedestal, someone that talks them, that knows themselves. And there is nothing more sexier, I think, than a man and or woman that knows themselves. Like they walk into a room and you just feel it. So yeah, he puts Tyler on a pedestal, and this is where the tipping point starts to happen that I noticed, where like the descent into like this schism, where he starts to lose himself in Tyler. Like like he feels so much more alive when he's Tyler, and like putting anyone on a pedestal, it's really hard to take them off. So being aware in your life where you put people on pedestals, where they're mentors, coaches, brothers, sisters, mums, fathers, partners, whatever it is, like, have you elevated someone above yourself? And then when you do that, it's really hard to see them as human, and we tend to protect them when they've done wrong. So if they've been like accused of like pedophilia or rape or anything, it's like there's this temptation to try and keep them elevated, try and keep them on that pedestal, because when they fall, you're going to fall. So it's a feedback loop that's very pernicious in I feel like in the day-to-day in the world, and it requires shadow work to look at, like where are you at? Like, where are you at with this behavior around putting people on pedestals? There's also the thing about guerrilla terrorists around food, and like making food like unedible, like peeing in it and coming in it, and there's like this getting it back at the rich kind of energy, and I think there's something much deeper than that. Like when you put someone on a pedestal, you can avoid questioning their motivations, like what's their intention. And I feel like peeing and making food inedible doesn't necessarily change anything. It's like this petty childhood revenge, where you get like this feel good. Now I'm lording it. I'm hitting the man. I'm getting back at the man. The man that I'm angry at. It doesn't really change anything. It's not really a solution. You're just venting anger, which is actually better placed addressing your father in this case. So there's like this internal battle of authenticity between like who the narrator is and who Tyler is, trying to work out like night and day when he's sleeping and he becomes Tyler, or whatever the transitions are. Like the schism starts to get more and more prevalent. The house they live in is falling apart, and I feel like that's like a metaphor for the outer world of what's really going on. Like it's unsustainable, like what we're doing at the moment, for men and women, like this society, this civilization, and the water. Like they don't care that the house is falling apart. Like before, he's gone from a house that he needed to have like all of these like trinkets and accessories from IKEA in it, and now there's no need for that. He's in a broken down house. Water, I feel is really important for the emotions. And pump the microphone again, just checking my phone for the time. We're to have a house meeting tonight, so I need to prepare for that. And water being emotions around like water is a really important element to transmute emotion. When we in the shamanic realms and the elemental realms of spirituality, each element has its own unique way of being able to help you, and you can tune into this. So water, like the whole house, it's all about emotion, and it's a house where like everything starts to, like the catalyst for the entire house of like everything starts to speed up in here. Like Marla comes there, it's like a play. There's a flashback to like he's playing like he's back into childhood, and like it's his mum and dad playing out between like Tyler and Marla, and I feel that it's precious, like this kind of symbology of water. Like it's a basic element, and it's what sustains us. And I feel like as an emotion, like emotions sustain us. And when you don't look at emotion, you become like a waking sleep. That become that zombie. I'll stop it there, and I'll start again as when he's reading the books around the I am Jax, I am Jax this, I am Jax that. So thank you for listening this far, and we'll pick it up on the next episode. Peace.